special meeting of Newport City Council for March 10th is called to order. Present are myself, Rick Ufford Chase, Mayor of the City of Newport, Council Member Carter Finnegan, Council Member Andrew Touchette, Council Member Kevin Charbonneau, City Clerk and Treasurer Jim Johnson, and we've got some city staff in the room as well. I see Tom Bernier from Public Works, Mike Brown from Department of Recreation, Travis Bingham from the Police Department, and Frank Cheney from Planning and Zoning. Am I missing anybody? Okay. I'm just going to take a deep breath here for a minute. So, friends, as we get started tonight, I want to just say a couple of quick things. You see some obvious changes as you come into the room, and I just want to explain them so you understand what's in my head. I moved myself down to this end of the table because I want to be able to make eye contact both with the people who are in the room from the public and also with all of the council members at the same time. And I found it really challenging, and it's a challenge we'll just have to continue to work with because it's so hard for council members to see one another, and it was nearly impossible for the mayor to pay attention to all of us without turning her back, without turning her back on some of us. So we're going to try this out. If we don't like it, we're going to change it. There's nothing fixed about tonight. We're just trying some new stuff. Okay, that's one change. Another change that you'll see is that Patrick and Mike from the rec department jumped to be helpful to me when I said, sure seems like we could be more hospitable during the executive sessions. And so they have brought some tables and chairs up from the gateway, and they scrounged a Keurig machine from somewhere, and Mike ran to Walmart and bought us a box of coffee and tea and such things. And it's all out there in the hall, and we hope that you will enjoy it. We'll probably add some magazines and board games at some point if it seems like it's going to be a long night. But tonight, we're doing fine with what we've got, I think, and I just want to appreciate both that and the fact that Mike kind of quietly bent over backward without saying a word to me and created classy looking facsimiles of our nameplates. So I feel like we're kind of ready to start tonight. So thank you to everybody who's worked hard this week, especially department heads who have worked hard this week to kind of help me get my feet under me. It's been a very long and educational week. I'll say one last thing, which is I have found these microphones to be less than fully helpful. So I will ask our new council members to project. And if I'm feeling like maybe people in the back can't hear you, I will remind you gently to project your voice. Don't assume that the mics are going to carry for you, okay? All right. You'll notice that we are not having a consent agenda tonight. That's in large measure because there were so many other things that I was working on as I pulled the agenda together that I didn't get to those items until after the city clerk and treasurer's office had closed on Friday afternoon, and I didn't want to try and bother people over the weekend. It feels to me like those things can be left until our first regular meeting, which will be a week from tonight. So that's why they are not there. So I'm finding that I can breathe a little better now than I could 3 minutes ago, which is good news. And I wonder if others of us at the table might be feeling a little bit of jitters like I am. So I've given the council members a heads up that we were going to ask for brief introductions of the new council members tonight. And I'm offering a prompt which council members are welcome to ignore. But if you would like, one way to handle an introduction might be for you to share some experience from your past that has helped you become the person who's seated at the table tonight. Some important piece of who you are, and maybe why it connects to what you're doing here and what your initial thoughts are about what you'd like to see happen as a council member. And I think we'll just do this one alphabetically, if that's all right. So, Kevin, although you are well known in this community, I wonder if you might want to take the opportunity to reintroduce yourself as part of the new council.
Sure. My name's Kevin Charbonneau. I was first elected in 2018. At that time, one of the things that I wanted to see was the water tower. A vote had been taken, it failed, and subsequently it was passed. Then COVID hit. But thank God we're doing it now. And that goes along with part of my reason for being on the council. I really want to help support the city's infrastructure and the departments. I don't think the city is to do much developing or buying property and renovating, but we can make it very attractive for developers. I've worked with many different communities, different agencies. I like to think that I can work with people. I'm honest, I'm fair, and I hope it's something that can be useful in the future.
Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate it. Councilmember Finnegan, would you like to introduce yourself to the community?
Good evening, Carter Finnegan, newly elect. So around the prompt idea of what was a formative experience, and chatting with people for the last month, something that came up actually with you, Mike, was about being a Girl Scout and then eventually becoming a leader. And similar around when I was a student and then I became a teacher and I was civically involved, and now here I am, an elected member of this council. And something that really profoundly, and I continue to grow into, is the first time I had to tell my students I'm sorry, and I had to say I made a mistake, and I had to be accountable, and just kind of admit that I'm learning as I'm going. So I hope that people have the patience with me at this seat, because I hope, you know, teachers don't know everything, and I truly leaned on my students a lot. So I hope that going forward, you guys can come to me and let me know when I might be straying. So, yeah.
Thank you. And Councilmember Touchette.
So I'm Andrew Touchette, newly elected as well. A couple things that came to mind when the mayor asked me the question was leadership and teamwork. I feel that in my life I've experienced several different, several different leadership roles, and it all revolves around teamwork because everything I've done involves a team, right? And to be successful, regardless whether it be personal or business, you need a team. You need family support on one side, you need teamwork from council, from the public on the other side. So some other points that I really like to address as well is please be patient with us. I know Carter just spoke to that as well, because we are new and we are learning. We have a huge uphill battle to discuss here, but we will get there. We are going to listen to everyone because part of that is listening. You learn the most by listening, and I feel that by doing so, we're going to be nothing but successful. Are we always going to agree? Not always, but keep in mind that it's the city's best interest at heart. And please remember to reach out if you need anything. And please, and I ask this of the council members as well, please be respectful. You can disagree, you can agree, but please always just be respectful to everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'll take the same opportunity. It's kind of hard to imagine that people don't know an awful lot about me now, because I feel like I've done nothing but talk about myself for the last month and a half or so. But I wanted to reflect along the same lines as our newly elected council members in my position now as a newly elected mayor with no experience having been a mayor before. It's made me think a little bit this week about my experience as a parent. I have 3 adult children. My oldest, our biological son, is now 29 years old, almost 30 years old. And then my wife and I adopted a couple of kids, Troy and Leanna, when they were in their late aughts. So I think Troy was 9 and Leanna was 8. And especially when we adopted, even more than when Teo was born, my wife Kitty's and my experience was that we had a lot of ideas about how we might parent kids who were coming to us with that kind of history they had. And some of those ideas worked, and some didn't. And we had a very steep learning curve that lasted for some considerable time. And so, like Carter and Andrew, I'm aware that there's a learning curve in front of me as well. So I ask for a little bit of graciousness, and I can take almost any kind of constructive criticism positively offered. So If y'all can keep that in mind, it will be a great help to me. I'll do my best to respond positively no matter what, and I'll say more about that later. So, and then one last thing I wanted to say, I tend to be a very informal person, and I've already noticed myself flipping back and forth between formal language and informal, referring to Kevin or Andrew or Carter with first name, and I welcome you doing the same with me. And I think it's fine to go back and forth, and if at some point it feels as if we need more formality, we'll talk about it. But I just wanted to say that I'm not looking to check any boxes in that category. Anything else folks want to add tonight before we begin our official meeting, our official business?
No, well said.
Okay. So our first matter tonight is to give the council an opportunity to hear from our legal counsel. And so one thing I want to say before I invite a motion is that I assume that our council members are smart people and that they will often create motions that matter to them themselves. Tonight, on these two motions to get us into a special session, the language is quite specific, and so I've asked for help from the attorneys, and we'll use the same language that Mayor Sullivan was using to establish the rationale for the special executive session. I'm sorry. And as you all leave the room, if someone could do me a favor and pull the little noisemaker that's right beside you there, Travis, out into the hallway under the door, and just hit the button on it to help us keep some privacy when in our deliberation, and help yourselves to keep tea and coffee. So here we go. I'm going to invite a motion. May I have a motion to find that premature public general knowledge of the confidential attorney-client communications made for providing legal services to the City Council would place the city at a substantial disadvantage because disclosure of the otherwise confidential advice and communication would harm the city by waiving the city's attorney-client privilege, 1 VSA section 313A1F. May I have that motion?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Then I would like a second motion to enter into executive session to discuss confidential attorney-client communications with the city attorney for the purpose of providing professional legal services, and invite the city attorney, David Rue, who's with us tonight by video, into the executive session pursuant to 1 VSA section 313A1F. May I have that motion?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
And before I ask for a vote on that one, Attorney Rue, I wonder if you might just make sure that I've done the language appropriately. Is there any, you have any concerns about that?
I think that you did it right. Who do you want in the executive session? You want the city attorney and anybody else?
Just the council members, the mayor, and the city attorney.
Perfect. Then you're good to go.
Okay, given that understanding, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. Welcome back, everybody. We are out of executive session. No action was taken. So we're moving on to the next item, which is item 6 on the agenda, grant agreement resolution, single grantee for Gardner Memorial Park improvement. And I will just explain to the public who are here, the council has all been informed, this is an action to reapprove an approval given by the previous council just a few weeks ago because we've misplaced the document. So what this is it was a unanimous decision whenever we did it. I think it was mid-February. This is just the formal grant agreement resolution that we need in order to execute the grant called, I got it right here, Gardner Memorial Park Improvements. And I'll just open it up. Let's see. I think we need to do a motion to approve first and get a second, and then we'll ask if there are any comments from the public, and then we'll bring it back to council for any comment. So do I have a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Great, we have a motion and a second. Is there any comment from the public?
Could you just tell us what it's going to improve? What are the improvements?
Would you like
This is the, you want me to answer that?
Yeah, why don't we ask Frank to do that?
Yeah, so this is...
So Frank, I'm going to ask you to come forward.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This is, we've had this grant for many years, okay, and this is just a formal offer from the state for the Gardner Park Playground project.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, bringing it back to the council. Do council members have any questions or comments?
I'm gonna recuse myself since my name is on this document.
Yes,
Yeah,
just to be clear,
it
in the
wasn't,
capacity that Carter Finnegan is the grant administrator, designated as the person with overall administrative responsibility for the activities related to this grant agreement. Okay, so that's why Carter's choosing to recuse herself. Any other comments, Andrew? Kevin? Okay, and then I will say that there are two instances, as I understand it, in which the mayor needs to vote. One is when there's a tie, and one is in which there is no quorum. In order to have a quorum, we have to have at least 3 of the 5 members of mayor and council who have voted. So I will be voting on this matter because we have 2 other members. Okay. So all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion passes. Thank you. Look at us go.
yeah.
All right, the next one. Yes, sir.
Can you sign the form for me?
I certainly can. And I can see why you might want that to happen right away. Hold on, let me, everybody just, yeah, so I'm going to pass this down. And let's wait for Kevin and Andrew to sign it as well. Thank you for the reminder.
Yeah,
Frank.
yeah.
Okay. Actually, I'm going to recommend we hand that to Frank right now. Let him make a copy for himself, and then Frank, if you bring it back in and give the original to the clerk, that'd be great. All right, moving on to item 7. This is a resolution authorizing myself, Mayor Rick Ufford Chase, to act as authorized agent for the city of Newport. And I'm going to read the authorization, the authorizing resolution, so that the council and the public have all heard it. This is very specific. It's related to signing documents that bind the city of Newport for grants awarded to the city of Newport. This is a resolution authorizing Rick Ufford Chase, Mayor of Newport, to act in his role as mayor and on behalf of the city of Newport, Vermont, as the authorized official, and granting him permission to sign all investment documents for any and all grants awarded to the city of Newport, Vermont. Resolved by City Council of Newport, Vermont as follows. Whereas the city of Newport, Vermont has been awarded certain grants for infrastructure and community development projects, now therefore the city mayor, Rick Ufford Chase, is hereby authorized on behalf of the city of Newport, Vermont, to be the authorized official and apply for, accept, and expend grant funds for those grants awarded to the city of Newport, Vermont. As authorized official, City Mayor Rick Ufford Chase has permission to sign all investment documents that bind the city of Newport for any and all grants awarded to the city of Newport, Vermont, approved this day, 10th day of March 2025, if we approve. May I have a motion?
I make that motion.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any comment from the public or questions? Yes, sir.
In the case of anything that would come before the council regarding NEK-TV, you would have to recuse yourself from those. When it comes to grants.
Yeah, so if yeah, I think it's gonna have to be on a case-by-case basis, but I would not sign off on any grant that would go to NDD itself, certainly. It's a good point.
Thank you.
Yeah, well taken. Thank you, Dennis. Any other comment from bringing it back to council? Okay, and I'll just make one comment myself, which is that this is a resolution that I would expect us to revisit once we have a city manager in place. We'll talk about the most appropriate way to handle these things going forward at that point. Okay? This is a measure to get us to that moment. Okay? So we have a motion, we have a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none, this motion passes. Thank you very much. Oh, we gotta sign this too, don't we?
Yeah, we do.
Hold the phone. You thought I'd forget, didn't you, Frank?
I wasn't gonna let you.
Noted.
Does this go to James or?
I think we've all signed it, Jim, at this point, so I think you can have it,
Oh,
okay? And then please do make sure that our grant administrator gets a copy, or maybe gets the
Yeah.
original, however you guys want to work that out,
I'll
okay?
give him a copy of this, and I want a copy of the one he's.
Yeah, there we go. Okay,
I
all
got
right.
a copy, but it's unsigned.
moving on to the next item, which is item number 8 on our agenda regarding the creation of a special task force on water and sewer. There are documents, if you have not seen them, on the table. This was posted along with the agenda on Friday late afternoon, and all of the council members have had the opportunity to see it. So I'm going to say something general about the intent without trying to read a 3-page document into the record. Okay? So it's my judgment, and I'm just going to say from here on out, most of the rest of the items this evening are items where I have come to the council with recommendations or points of information. This remains a council decision. So my recommendation goes to the council. We can hear from the community any comments or concerns you have. The council at the end of the day is going to make the determination about whether or not it's appropriate to establish this task force on my recommendation. So I'll just say the intent behind this recommendation is that I found during my year on the council that it was extremely challenging to understand the ins and outs of the water and sewer budget, how we set rates, how we got into the financial challenges that we have, and what the best way forward might be. And it's my judgment that there are smart people in this community who, given an opportunity to step forward and volunteer their time, might be willing, I expect would be willing, to serve on a special task force. This task force, if we pass it the way I've recommended, would be a 6-month duration with the possibility that the council could vote 6 months from now to extend if they desire. But it has a sunset clause in it of 6 months. The bulk of the council's work on this matter, we would ask that it take place in the next 6 weeks, because we are on a very tight timeline to address the rate question if we wanted to impact the fiscal year 25-26 budget. So the council would be, if we choose to form this task force tonight, then we would take letters of interest, and I would recommend that anybody interested would also submit some statement of your qualifications, a resume, a brief document stating why you believe you have particular qualifications on this matter. To Mayor, you would submit them to me by Friday at noon. I will distribute them to the other council members, and if we have any questions for folks in advance, we would try and reach out and ask them, but we would expect to bring the slate of potential nominees to this task force back to next week's council meeting, and the council would then take action on who would be appointed to the council at that meeting, and its work would begin immediately. And finally, but also, my request will be that we have one of our council members serve on this and another council member on the other task force that we'll discuss in a moment. So I've made it clear to the council members that I am hoping that we will be, in my language, an activist council for the foreseeable future, that we have a lot of work to do, and we will need pretty significant engagement from our council members in order to carry out that work. So having said that much, in order to get the conversation started, I'd entertain a motion regarding the formation of this council if anybody would like, this special task force, if anyone would like to make such a motion.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, the motion has been made. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second, and I would love to take any comments or questions from the public regarding that. And we'll just ask you, I'll recognize you and ask you to go to the microphone. And Ann, if you could just slide that over to the middle so it's not right on top of you there. Just slide the mic over for us, please. Okay. Please address the council through the mayor. So please come and feel free to address your comments to me. And Ann, or Pam, I understand you have a question or comment first.
I can get out without killing myself. Pam Lads, I understand the speed that you would like this to happen in. However, anybody who's not here tonight, the video will not be ready until Wednesday, so people are not going to even have a chance to see it till Wednesday night or Thursday. asking people to apply by Friday is pushing it.
Thank you.
I don't think we're going to get enough information.
Thank you for your comment. Ann?
I should have gone the other way. There's a section in both this and in the other special task force. It's in the section on how the group will function, and it says, permission for the public to speak in the special task force meetings will be at the discretion of the chair of the task force. And that concerns me a little bit, unless it has something in it that says the presumption will be that the public will be allowed to speak in this. I know there might be reasons that a person who's leading this up might decide on a certain instance, or because of maybe we spend too long talking, as I'm doing right now, that you might want to cut us off. But the presumption should be that the public is included, because there are loads of people who won't be on the committee who will have really useful ideas, and they should be part of the conversation. Not that their ideas should be accepted as gospel or anything, but they will stimulate you to think of other things. And so I would really like you to think about changing that in some way to suggest that the public will be in some way, the presumption should be that we are included.
Thank you for your comment. I'll just say before I recognize the next person, I'm not going to try and respond directly to questions, but I trust that council members are noting concerns that you're hearing so we can discuss them, okay? Lori?
Lori Grimm, City of Newport resident. I understand the reasoning for the task force, and but I also understand that the council really is our water commissioners, and that I believe in reading this that what you really are trying to do is get to the bottom of things as quickly as possible without you guys having to meet, all the time. But I have one concern, and it's really for both this task force and the other. Do you want me to speak to both of them at the same time, or this one first?
If it's the same concern, I'd say you can speak to it and it will be translated over.
Okay, so with this one, the task force on water and sewer, they both list interested parties who may or may not be residents of the city of Newport. I have a real concern of adding non-residents to a committee that is dealing with the city, especially for the water and sewer task force. As long as, say, if it's a business person owns a business, pays the rate to the city through their business, but lives outside of the city, which I know that we have lots. I don't have a problem with that one, but I absolutely do not believe that we should have people outside of the city unless they are professionals in their field and can act as consultants, but they should not have any other role in either of these committees, and especially with the water and sewer. It needs to be someone who is physically paying the fees and understands what we're doing.
Thank you for your comment. Jennifer?
Jennifer Buehring, Newport, Vermont. So I reached out to my neighbor. I'm not going to say his name because he'll shoot me probably. But and he used to manage the water district for Milton, so he's got a lot of expertise. He's on vacation right now, so I'm working to try to, it's hard. He's on vacation, right? To get a letter in by Friday. So I would probably echo the concern about such a short deadline, because I think he would be really, really valuable to have on this task force. And if you could, he's back on the 20th, and I'll see if he can do something from the road to get you guys a letter, but just kind of keep that in mind.
Thank you for your
You're
comment.
welcome.
I saw other hands. Mr. Bernier.
Tom Bernier, Director of Public Works. I just thought of it, Rick, too. I probably should have thought of it earlier. The last time we had a water meter committee, which is kind of the same thing that we're
Somewhat
working
similar.
on here. I've been on 2. Yes, I do want to be on it if I'm allowed to be on it. But we gathered people from, I know, North Country Hospital. We had one of their staff there. Columbia Forest Products. We took a lot of the bigger users. We had some apartment owners. Jennifer Hopkins was on the last one with us, and we looked at all the structure there, and then the homes. We took a lot of the homes that currently had meters. So there's a lot of information out there that I can bring to it, but just the thought that some of these people might have some interest.
Thank you for your comment. And I will just add there, in terms of the role of staff, I want to be clear with the council that it's my recommendation that staff are not serving as members of these task forces, but they will be asked to be support to the council, to these task forces as appropriate. Any other hands? Anybody else who would like to speak to this? Seeing none, I'm going to draw the conversation back to the council. You've heard the wisdom of the community who's represented tonight, and I'd love to hear what you all think about this.
I think this room does have a point about non-residents weighing in on our finances. Our water meter should be residents of Newport, unless we seek professional help, obviously.
Other comments about that in particular?
I think when that was written, I think it was, and maybe I'm misunderstanding that, but I was under the assumption that it was a business owner or someone that had a personal, they paid tag, they paid it. Even though they lived out of town, they had a business that they could, they did pay it. So, and maybe I misread it. That's how I perceived it.
Yeah, I think
Go ahead.
there's weight and value to our neighbors, even if they're not necessarily Newport residents. They might have experience or truly some weight and pay the bills as well. So I don't know if we are able to draw that line with certain language, but I think I'm willing to be more open to Derbians and Coventryans joining this task force. But I do also hear.
So I'll just say, I didn't have that intent, Andrew, just to be clear. Like I honestly, my own thinking about this is that there may be some people who have particular expertise who aren't residents of the city of Newport, whom we would really like to have serve on this committee. At the end of the day, if it's the council's will to limit it to people who are ratepayers in one way or another within the city, I'm open to that. And I think the best way to handle a revision, rather than try and do it through formal rules of Robert's rules, would be for you all to tinker with the language right here, right now, and tell us how you'd like to make the change, and we'll make the change so that we have a final markup copy upon which you're voting. And let me just ask do you have any concerns about doing it that way? I worked at the national level of the Presbyterian Church where the attention to Robert's rules was everything. But I think if we can get to a shared assumption about what we were looking for, that'd be okay.
Well, hearing Carter and Andrew talk about, business owners that may not live in the city, I guess it makes perfect sense. And that's probably something as the applications or the letters of interest come in that we can look at. And are they in fact an interested party?
That's a good point. I mean, one way to solve this might be just to take out my parenthetical statement that says who may or may not be residents of the city of Newport, and allow it to be the determination of the council on Monday night next week, assuming that's when we choose to move ahead, right?
Right.
That the council would then take that into consideration as you make your appointments. And if we have somebody with a particular level of expertise who's outside the bounds, it would be the determination of the council whether or not that's an appropriate appointment. Does that sound okay to the council? All right, so let's just strike that parentheses in number 1 under committee membership nominations and appointment.
Crazy idea.
Mhm.
Do you have this as a Google Doc, and am I able to?
Let's do that
Next
next.
time?
Let's
Okay.
work toward technology, but not let technology actually screw us up tonight, shall we?
Understood.
Let's stick a little bit of paper and pen for a moment here. Thank you. Okay, we had other comments, and I'm sure that you all have other comments and questions as well.
No, in general, I really appreciate this approach because it's gathering the minds that really have a lot of knowledge around this instead of just putting it on this table here, and delegating this out and creating small subgroups. I mean, we've seen it help grow NDD. It really just focuses people's attention on a task and could effectively, create better outcomes, I think. So.
Andy, anything you want to add?
No, I'm good.
Kevin?
It'll be a hard committee.
It's going to be a lot of work, yeah. I will point out, because I did hear it come from several people, in the very first paragraph behind committee membership nominations and appointment, it does specify that appointments we make on Monday night next week do not have to be the final say. In other words, at any point, the council could move to appoint someone else to that committee. So if there are qualified people who cannot figure out how to make it happen or they're not aware yet, it would be at the council's discretion to add them to that committee going forward. Okay. Any other concerns? I have a motion to approve the formation of a special task force on water and sewer, according to the guidelines as we just amended them that have been presented to you. And I have a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? The motion carries. Thank you very much. And actually, let's just pass that down to Jim. It's got the markup that I did on it as our final. Okay, our next item is agenda item number 9 regarding a special task force on financial reporting and fiscal practices. I'll speak again to the intent and then invite a motion. The intent behind this one is to take on the other set of questions that as a council member I have found very challenging over the last year. It would include this group's mandate for 6 months, just as the other one, would be to look at what reports are being generated for the council in order to have a good idea of what's going on at any given moment. It would include, and that would include, I would assume, a balance statement, a balance sheet, what in the nonprofit world or the for-profit world I've always called a profit and loss, or income expense statement. And the thing that we've been asking for as a council now for at least 8 or 9 months, and that would be some kind of a cash flow or financial projection statement that is updated throughout the year to give us a sense of where we are. So in addition to that, that group would be tasked with looking at the deficit that we've been running at and its impact, particularly the loss of the cash reserve and how we can go about reestablishing a healthy cash reserve. It would look at, and it would make recommendations to council about the best way to try and address that reestablishment of the cash reserve. It would probably find itself having conversations about our various lines of credit and debt, and making any recommendations about those. And then finally, it would be looking at the practice of setting aside money in our budgets for future capital expenditures, which we have at some point used sinking funds to address. At some points we haven't. At some points we've said we're doing it, but we haven't fully done it. And so we would ask this group to look at all of those questions and over the next 6 months to come back to us with a series of recommendations for our action on those items. So with that intent, I'll ask if we have a motion to create such a special task force.
I'll make that motion.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Yeah, you have a second.
And I have a second. So we have a motion and a second. We'd be happy to hear comments or concerns, questions from the floor. If you're recognized, and go to the microphone. Jennifer, please.
Jennifer, Newport, Vermont. So, in the past, like back 18 months ago, when the agendas were put on the website, there was all the supporting documentation, much of it being these reports and things that are covered by the task force. And I'm just curious if it is the intent of the council, once you guys all figure out what reports are going to be necessary to be presented to the council on a regular basis, that they would also be attached to the agenda so that the public can see those same documents as well.
Thank you for your
Thanks.
comment. Lori?
I guess I just sort of feel like it's really important that specifically on this task force, unless someone from outside the city has particular training in this kind of stuff and can bring that to the table, that especially dealing with Newport City finances, it needs to be, this task force only needs to be people who are residents, taxpayers of the city of Newport.
Thank you for your comment. Other comments, questions from the community? Okay, then bringing it back to council. Anything that you'd like to suggest about this document?
I think the same as the last one, after interested parties, if we strike that sentence, who may or may not be residents. There may be somebody out there that's a brilliant CPA or whatever that wants to help us.
Thank you. Other comments or questions about this one?
Yeah, I just don't want to constrict somebody who has a relevant experience from volunteering their time to help us take a really good look at things. So I agree with what you're suggesting.
Okay. I'm looking because I think I remembered. Yes. So under committee membership, I just want to say that in the second sentence there, the way I crafted this was I wrote the mayor, the treasurer, and one council member will serve as members of this task force. And I think I want to clarify that the mayor and the council member will serve as members of the task force, and we would ask the treasurer to support the task force as an employee of the city. So just clarifying, I don't know that it matters in any way, but let's keep it consistent with the previous one. So I would just strike treasurer and in that sentence and understand, and I've let Jim already, Jim knows that my concern would be that we would have Jim's involvement in a very hands-on way with this group. But let's just keep the language clean. Is everybody okay with that change as well?
So striking and?
Just striking the treasurer and, so it would say the mayor and one council member will serve, and it does not delineate then what the treasurer would do, in the same way that we didn't delineate that the director of public works might be involved, or would you expect to be involved as a support staff to the other special task force.
Is there language in here that says, do you think it's required?
Special presenter.
The tiers of support?
No, I think, it might be helpful. Carter's asking a good question, which is, should we delineate which staff we expect will be supporting? And I would recommend actually that we do some thinking about that this week. Yeah. And if the council would like to name particular staff that they would like to have take on this responsibility as a clear responsibility, that we would name that in any actions we would take about appointment, following any actions of appointment next week. And with the understanding that we can always ask others to come into the process if we want to as well. Okay? And then the last thing I'll just say is I want to be really clear, and we have stated it clearly in these documents. None of the work of these task forces supersedes the responsibility and the authority of the mayor and council to make the decisions ultimately. These are recommending bodies. They are not bodies for action. Okay? Any other questions? I have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion passes. Thank you very much. And here, just pass that one down to Jim too, please. Okay. We're singing along here. Item number 10 on the agenda is information that I have put together for council consideration. I don't believe there's any action necessary here, but council may choose to disagree with me about that. And I'll just review these points and then allow the community to, I don't think we need a motion because there's no, unless you all have a motion. We'll just ask for any public comment from the community and then allow you all to make any comment as well. So this is by way really of putting the council and the community on notice that we're going to be really busy. And so I'm assuming that once we have a full complement of council members, that we would ask one council member to serve as council president, one council member to serve on the Special Task Force for Water and Sewer, one council member to serve on the Special Task Force for Financial Reporting and Fiscal Planning, and one council member who would work directly with me to identify a candidate to fill the empty position titled Financial and Office Administrator, which we will talk about in a moment. In addition, I've thought of a number, and I've actually thought of a number more that I don't know that we need to spell out tonight, but there are a wide variety of opportunities that I think the council may want to avail themselves of. And so I just want to be clear that I will be meeting weekly, starting not tomorrow, but a week from tomorrow, with department heads. We had a meeting on Thursday that went, I think, quite well. Y'all can ask them what they think if you want. And they will be continuing to meet now on Tuesday mornings at 10 a.m., and I will be meeting with them. And I would recommend that we not name a council member to sit in on those meetings, but make it available so that if any of you can make your work lives work and you'd like to join us, you are welcome to for those meetings. Only one council member, of course, so that we don't violate open meeting laws. And I would say that we might flex on that so that, for instance, if one of you has a more flexible schedule and can go more often, when another person says, oh, I have a week where I could do it, that person steps back and the other person has an opportunity to do it. So just a kind of a careful way to go at that. Another area is Newport Downtown Development is tomorrow actually beginning our first conversations, formal conversations with White and Burke on the contract that we signed with them, the council mayor signed back in January. And again, if there's a council member who is interested in those conversations, they would be welcome to sit in on those meetings because, let's just be clear, the MOU that we signed in December between the city and the Newport Downtown Development, again, made clear that Newport Downtown's development's actions are on behalf of City Council, and that regularly NDD will be coming back to City Council with updates and requests for permission to move to another stage in the process. So the more the council member knows about what council members know as a whole about what's going on with that, the better. Meetings of standing commissions or committees. I have not spoken with all of these groups, but it's my assumption that a council member would be welcome at any of these kinds of groups, and that the more you are and we are aware together of what's going on, the better it's going to get. The related entities, this is casting the net a little wider, that our city has chosen to support through appropriations. A variety of community organizations. In my experience, they're quite open, and if asked in advance and with a little bit of warning and just to be told, we're just coming to observe and to understand better your work, I suspect most of those organizations, if not all of them, would be very open to that. Community events where council representation might be appropriate. And so I'll just give an example of that. This coming Thursday, there will be a meeting related to RCT, and I will be unable to be there because I have to be at a meeting all Marlboro with other folks from downtown organizations. And so a couple of council members have already expressed interest, and I'd say up to 2 of you, if I'm not going, could go to any one of those. So in this instance, I just want to clarify that I've heard both Andy and Carter say that you're available and would like to go. Andrew, Kevin, is that okay with you? If the 2 of you?
That's fine. We actually have something at the high school.
Okay, so we'll just coordinate to make sure that we don't inadvertently have too many people show up at one of those events. Be a nice problem to have, actually, if we said, oh, I gotta go away because we can't have all 3 of us here. So, and I'll trust you all, if something like that happens, to just take responsibility for that. So, and then if you do that, I would ask that you create some kind of a brief written summary to bring back so that the rest of us can be educated about what's going on in those meetings as well.
Would that be a thing that you want me to bring, or like either of us bring up at new business, or is that like would you like a memo to submit as a packet?
I don't know, I think probably new business would be appropriate.
Great, love it.
Anybody in the community have a problem with that happening in new business, just to report in from the council members? That seems totally appropriate, thank you. And then finally, I listed here that I've spoken with all three of our council members about the hope that I have that we might go to the training that is put on by VLCT for new council members and mayors. And even Kevin has said that he's interested in going. I'll just tell the community, there is not a prohibition against trainings, against our attending trainings. If we choose to travel to them and back, we would have to do so with the understanding that we're not traveling, we're not talking about city business, we're getting to know each other in the process, okay? So we'll figure out if we're carpooling and in what numbers and all of that, but I wanted to let you all know that our hope is to attend that the first training, which is March.
22nd.
Is it the 22nd? Okay, I gotta look at that. I think that's what I had on my calendar. Anyway, we'll figure it out, okay?
Couple Saturdays.
Yeah. And then finally, I would recommend that we hold off for the time being the practice that the council has had in the previous term of assigning council members as liaisons to the various departments. I think it's important. I'd like to see us revisit it by June, but it just feels to me like we've got so much to do right now that we've got good department heads. We trust their work. They'll bring us any concerns they have, and I would recommend that we hold off on that for the time being. And then finally, there has been a lot of conversation about when it's appropriate for council members to have conversation with department heads. I want to be clear that my own inclination on this matter is to say that you all are responsible, thoughtful adults, and so are our department heads, and you're welcome to have conversation with three provisos, if you will. One, if you begin to soak up too much of a department head's time, we will need to talk about it. These are busy people. If you want to check in with them and say hi or support them in some way, great, go for it. Second, I would ask that you not speak with individual staff of the community beyond pleasantries or normal friendly conversation that you might have when you bump into someone at the grocery store. So that if you have specific concerns about someone, the job they're doing, the responsibilities they have, what they ought to be doing today, whatever it might be, that those items get channeled through me until we have a city manager so that I can talk with the department heads and involve them in that conversation. And finally, and this one's equally important, I would ask that none of the council give instructions to the department heads about what they think ought to be most important on their agenda on any given day. If you have a concern coming from the community, wonderful. I'd ask that you bring it to me. You do not need to wait for a council meeting to do so. I will put it on the agenda with the department heads, and we will talk together about the best way to manage that concern so that it doesn't interrupt the workflow that they're already trying to manage. Are there any questions about any of the items that I've laid out here as we get started in terms of our relationships?
I just want to make sure that the department heads are aware without a liaison, they can still come to any of us.
That's a good point.
At any time.
Yep. Yes, and if they, okay, so let's just talk about that for a moment. If a department head comes to you with a particular concern, I would ask to have the courtesy of being brought into that conversation immediately. And I've already spoken with the department heads about my desire, if at all possible, not to get surprised, because it's a lot easier for me to help manage the work of the community without surprises. But having said that, I'm not trying to limit the ability of any of you to have conversation with department heads. I just ask for the courtesy that I get brought into that loop quickly. Okay? Okay. Any from the community, are there any concerns or questions that you would like to raise? Are there? Yes, sir. Joseph.
This is my job, not a city thing, but in cases where a meeting would otherwise be a public meeting, would you consider warning it so that more than 2 council members could attend?
I don't know. I hadn't thought about it. So if there's an opportunity to have that possibility, certainly the council would want to take that seriously. Any other questions or concerns? Yeah, Patrick, if you come to the mic, please.
I'm Patrick. I live in town. I like the idea of allowing multiple council people to attend these meetings, but I can't help but think that continuity is better than attending one, not attending the next three. The task force, not the meetings. The task force meetings. I would encourage council members to stick to one task force for consistency.
That's the intent. We would, on those task forces we just created, we would name a council member who's serving on that task force. Yes. Any other questions? Any other comments or questions, or is there any action that any council member would like to propose coming out of this, or is it okay to just let it sit as information? Okay.
Well, I guess I would say for the first chunk about, we can start talking about it. There's not a fourth person up here, but I would be inclined for council president if Kevin, your history at this table, your just knowledge around these practices. I had an inclination there, but you can just sit on it. But I don't know if there's nominations or anything like that, but that's where my thought is. And then I personally would be willing to sit on one of the task force, but discussing whose strengths at this table would be suited, I think, to be continued. But that's my thought process right now.
Thank you, Carter. Anybody want to speak to those questions that Carter's just raised or possibilities?
I would be willing to sit on a task force as well as offer to assist you with the hiring and so on of the financial and office administrator position.
Thank you, Andrew. Kevin, any comment?
I would be willing to divide for a president, but I want to discuss with you first and see. And I think there's one other issue, but I'll run it by you and
Okay. So let's assume that we're going to come back a week from tonight and actually make some of those assignments so people can reflect on it, and anyone who wants to have conversation with me is welcome to this week. Okay. Okay. All right. Then that matter is closed for tonight. Thank you. We're going to move on to item number, what are we up to here? 11. We're making our way through this agenda. Thank you, everybody. This again is information for council consideration. I don't think it's ready for a motion, but I wanted to inform the council. Well, actually, no, there are some motions in this. So the first thing is, it's my judgment that until we have a financial and office administrator, there is a lot of work that goes into the creation of the packets to support the agenda, the public warnings of the meetings, and the posting of the minutes. Chris Vachon and I have been sharing that responsibility, with Chris taking the lead on it, especially on the technology questions. Over the last several months, I've been deeply grateful for that support, and with the council's permission, I would like to entertain a motion that Chris be asked to serve as a volunteer to help with creating council packets and posting warnings and minutes appropriately for up to 3 months until we filled the financial and office administrator position, and that person has been oriented to those tasks appropriately. And I would add into that motion that this would not include access to any confidential materials that the council would consider an executive session. So if there's a motion to get that on the table.
I'd make that motion.
Thank you. Is there a second?
second.
Okay. So I have a motion and a second. Is there any comment or concern from the community about that proposal?
I'm deeply grateful.
Yeah. No kidding. I will tell you, I have asked Chris. I'm not just throwing him under the bus without warning him. Okay. So Chris has said that he's willing, and I think he's still even on tonight. Chris, do you want to just say a word about your willingness to serve?
Yes, hello all.
Hello.
Hello.
Yeah, I just didn't want to leave the council hanging. I know there's some extra work online that has been done. I just want to make sure that's
not gone by the wayside. I'm fully willing to help train anybody willing to step up to maybe lessen those 3 months if needed. But yeah, I'm here as needed.
Very grateful, Chris, and it's strange not to have you at the table, and good to have you with us. So, okay, so we have a motion and a second. Any other comment? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No opposition, the motion passes. Thank you very much. And then the second is an item for information only that I would ask that we may want to take action on next week. And that is, I just want to let folks know that it's a high priority of mine personally to try and get that position filled for the financial and office administrator. The process that we would want to follow, I think, are to review the job description for the financial and office administrator position, make sure it's the job description we're still looking for, review the applicants we've had to date, determine together whether it's advisable to advertise the position again, which would assume that anyone who has already applied would have the opportunity to maintain their application, to organize any necessary council interviews with the candidates, probably an executive session, and then finally to implement a plan to actually manage the city's office and financial administrative needs with the goal of filling that position no later than the 1st of May. So I don't think we're looking for a motion, but I'll just ask if there are any comments or concerns from the community about that course of action. Hearing none, I'd love to hear from the council members about whether you've got any questions or concerns or ideas, thoughts about this.
I have several, but go ahead.
I have none.
I was like, you kick it
So-
off.
Yeah, it's all yours, Andrew, go for it.
Were there a lot of applicants that were interviewed previously?
To the best of my knowledge, there have been 3 applicants to date, and they have not all been interviewed.
Okay. The way that's written is a temporary position, temporary full-time position. Would we be looking to make that a full-time position as opposed to temporary? Due to the fact I think we could get more applicants if it was a permanent position as opposed to.
Great question. I will report to you that I've been working with the appropriate folks to see if we can clarify whether or not this needs to be temporary or it could be listed as a permanent position going forward. And because it involves personnel matters, that's all I'm comfortable saying tonight in open session. Any other questions?
That's all I have.
I'm sorry, Joseph, because we've already had public comment, I'm gonna hold off on that. Okay. Any other questions from council? Okay, then I think that's all we need for tonight on this matter. Okay, moving on to item number 12. I reviewed with the city attorney the information that you have in front of you about how the process to fill the vacant council seat. And so I'll just review what we have before us. A vacant seat can be filled either by council appointment or by special election. A special election may be called by council or by petition of 25 voters as per charter. And I will tell you that the clerk has now received a petition with 25 signatures on it. It's to calling for a special election. If the council chooses, we could, although it's now a moot point, have simply called for a special election ourselves. If the council chooses to appoint someone, which we can do, even if there's going to be a special election, if we believe that there's a compelling reason to do so, then the council must post a notice of vacancy for a 10-day period, during which time interested parties can apply in writing to be considered for that nomination. It's then the mayor and council's responsibility to consider the letters of interest, to ask any further questions of potential appointees, and then at that point, making a determination about whether we would like to appoint someone to the position. I'll come back to that in a moment. Following an appointment by council, in this case, again, a moot point because it's already been asked for, there would also be a process by which a special election would be held. The appointed council member would be welcome to collect signatures like any other candidate to run in that special election for the vacant seat. or the seat that will be determined as a result of that special election. And finally, whether appointed or elected, the new council member serves until the next annual meeting, at which point they can choose to run for the position again if they wish. And in this instance, because they're fulfilling the end of my term, right, that I've just vacated, which was a 2-year term, they would then, if elected, be serving for another full 2-year term. So, no? Yes, if I meant if elected a year from now.
Yes.
Right, if they chose to run again
Correct.
at the next annual meeting and they were elected at that point, they would be serving for 2 years. I'm sorry, I misspoke. Jim, did I miss anything in there?
You're correct now.
Okay, thank you. So I would love to hear, I think tonight, the question that is before the council would be whether or not you want to make a motion to appoint someone. And then if you choose to appoint someone, it would definitely involve setting a 10-day notice of vacancy, and we would follow the decision on whether to appoint immediately with a decision on holding a special meeting 10 days from now. So if you choose to appoint tonight, it would involve 2 motions back to back. Okay? And if you choose not to appoint and simply allow the special election to go forward, then I suppose you could actually take action tonight, which would make the petition an additional request, but not necessarily necessary. Does that sound right to you, Jim?
If you appoint, the petition requesting a special election, you have to do that.
Mm-hmm.
You can appoint somebody after your 10-day period until the special election.
Yes, understood.
It's basically 2 meetings.
Okay, so if we choose not to appoint tonight, the process is already underway and there would be no action necessary to call the special election. We would simply have to set the timeline for it, is that correct?
Yeah, it's just following the timeline to the special election.
Okay, and do you want to say a word, Jim, about the timeline?
Yeah, so you gotta set it far enough out. I think the earliest they could hold it, or we could hold it, you could hold it, would be April 29th. Because I wanna give the people who are interested in running a week and a half to get petitions in. Those petitions would be due on or before March 24th. They're due the 6th Monday before the meeting. So they give a week and a half, 2 weeks for petitions. They gotta be in on the 24th. You hold the election on April 29th. And I'd have to warn it somewhere in the middle of April.
Okay.
So either April 29th, the next alternative would be May 6th, the first Tuesday in May.
Okay, so given the complexity of what we have before us, rather than entertaining a motion in order to get a conversation going, I'm going to call this a discussion for the moment and allow any comment from the community about their concerns or questions, and then we'll bring it back to the council for a discussion, out of which, if you choose, you could make a motion. Does that sound okay to everybody?
Yeah, if you're gonna do it April 29th, you really need to make a motion, set the meeting for April 29th.
Understood.
Tonight.
So we'll get to that by the end.
Okay.
But I'm saying it's complex enough that I don't want to bind us to a particular motion until people have had a chance to weigh in and offer their judgment. Okay. So y'all have heard what we're wrestling with here, and if there's anyone in the room who would like to make comment to the council through the mayor about the choices before us, you are welcome to do so, or raise any questions. Mike, you could go first.
My name is Mike Kutz, a city resident. If this petition makes an appointment meaningless, why bother? If that's the case, then you need to go set out an election and do it tonight. I would have been in favor of an appointment. That way you could appoint somebody and not waste a lot of time and money on an election.
You're here.
You know, but if we're handcuffed because 25 people sat down in a room and signed it, that means 25 people are running the election. For me, that's a little bit sketchy. But in any case, if we're tied up legally, we have to have an election, just go ahead and do it.
Thank you for your comment. Jennifer?
I'm Jennifer Newport. You guys have got a mess on your hands right now, as I think we're all aware. And I know that without the city manager in place, you know, it's kind of a patchwork quilt of trying to assign tasks to various council members, and being down a council member makes that even more challenging. So I think it probably makes sense to go ahead and appoint somebody so that you have another body basically that's able to take on some of those tasks. And it's a no harm, no foul, because the residents still get their special election. And whoever you appoint would have to throw their hat in the ring at an equal footing with everybody else. So just to give you guys some relief, I would say go for it, appoint.
Thank you. Ann?
I don't necessarily want to disagree with what a resident says, and I like to encourage people, obviously, to talk. But I don't think there was any harm in residents deciding that there should be an election. That's the American way. It's democracy in action, and they didn't rule over anything. They only said whoever wants to apply for this job should put their hats in the ring and get voted on just the way all of you have been voted on. So I don't mean to wave the flag.
No, I appreciate the way in which you made your comment. Thank you. Other comments from the community? Okay, this is our chance to cuss and discuss. What do y'all want to talk about?
I got a question. A petition's been put in for a special election. Does that mean there's a person running already?
No.
No, because the only way you could run is if you collect signatures and turn them into the clerk in their appropriate number.
Okay.
Okay?
The petition's just giving the right to.
The petition is simply saying we are going to hold a special election.
Right, okay.
Yeah. Other comments? Questions?
I was just gonna say for the timelines that are ahead of us, whether that's like setting the sewer rate, whether that's just the fiscal responsibility and getting on par, that I would implore community members of the public, if we were to move forward with an appointment, which I'm leaning towards, it would just be another brain at the table, another perspective, and a chance for somebody to volunteer their time and weigh in on these issues, no matter how temporary. Because the next month and a half, we're gonna be busy, we're gonna be meeting a lot, and I wouldn't mind, yeah.
Thank you.
I would like to make the motion to do so, to appoint someone, because the timeline, like Carter said, the timeline is very aggressive. And if we're out 6 weeks, 7 weeks, potentially even 8 weeks, you know, tonight, you know, we're still gonna be out almost 7 weeks. So that's pretty aggressive to be without someone.
Thank you. So I hear that now in the form of a motion.
Yes, I would like to make the motion that we appoint in the interim until the special election can be held.
Okay, which I'll just add to your motion if it's okay. Consider this a friendly clarification. That means that our motion would declare that for the next 10 days there's a position of vacancy that would be declared, so that people would know that they can apply to be considered for appointment.
Correct.
Okay?
Correct.
Okay. I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Just to clarify, I'm sorry. 10 working days or 10 calendar days?
No, it's my understanding it's 10 calendar days.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a good question. So I have a motion from Andrew. Do I have a second?
A second.
I have a motion and a second. Now I'll turn to the community one more time. Is there any comment that the community members would like to make? Hearing none. Any further comment or clarification question from the council members? We have a motion and a second to appoint a special task force and to begin a period, a 10-day declaration of vacancy starting tomorrow. Tonight, whatever that.
You're not appointing a special.
We're not. Did I say special election?
No, you didn't, just a task force.
Thank you. Thank you. So what we're doing here is declaring a 10-day period in which the vacancy of the council seat will be announced and people can be encouraged to apply, to be appointed. Okay. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion passes. Thank you. So then, as I understand it, it would be appropriate to set a special meeting 10 days out, at which the council could then move to take action on the appointment based on interested parties who have applied.
What does that look like then?
That would put it the 20th, Thursday the 20th. Does that sound appropriate to you, Mr. Clerk?
Yep. Sure is.
So do we have a motion to declare a special meeting at 6 o'clock on, I think that's a Thursday night, the 20th of March, for the purpose of appointing someone to the vacant council seat?
I'll make that motion.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. Do you have something you want to?
This night, the rec committee meets here, I think, on the 20th in this room, so.
I'm sorry, could you speak up?
Oh, the rec committee uses this room on the 20th.
Okay, so we may have to ask them to
Yeah.
share the space. We'll work it out with quick help from Mike.
Probably.
Yeah.
Thank you for the comment.
Yeah.
Are there any other comments from the community? Lori,
So I just.
please go to the microphone.
Yes.
Such as it is.
Speak loud. So I just want to make sure, so on the 20th, then that's when the council will review the applications for the position and then
We will appoint
appoint that night. Okay.
Yes, so just to be clear,
We need a new one anyway.
so just to be clear, we will ask for interested parties to provide a letter of interest and a resume, a statement of their qualification. And I think it would be most appropriate, if it's okay with you, Mr. Clerk, to have those go to the clerk's office.
Where they should go anyway.
Yep, between now and end of close of business on Thursday the 20th. At any time, people are welcome to put that application in. If they are interested, the party, I would say the party will have to be present for that special meeting, because the council will want the opportunity to have conversation with those people. And I will say, I'm not yet sure whether that would be open meeting or executive session. We need to have some deliberation about what's most appropriate there. So we're not committing ourselves to how we would have that conversation yet, but anyone who's interested would be expected to be present either by video or in person. With that understanding, are there any further questions from the council about the motion before us? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion to hold a special meeting on Thursday the 20th at 6 p.m. for the purpose of appointing a member to the vacant council seat, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that motion passes. Thank you very much. We're making our way through it, everybody. Thanks for your patience. Okay, the next item is just a point of information. I'm sorry, go ahead, Joseph.
Mr. Mayor, are you still considering setting a time for the election?
Thank you so much. Yes, I didn't mean to rush past that.
I was just gonna say that, but he beat me to it.
Yes, that's a very good point. So, Mr. Clerk,
He said it.
I think we, the council, are open to your recommendation about what we have to do tonight to set that special election. Can you make recommendations to us tonight?
The earliest I can do it is April 29th. That's the earliest date you can have.
My understanding is we have 60 days, correct? By statute, by charter.
Correct. 29th is the earliest, because you gotta have 6 Mondays between the time petitions come in and the meeting.
Understood.
And you can back out in the middle of May if you want. It's just gonna be a longer period before you get somebody elected, that's all.
I have no opinion on this one. Does the council have an opinion?
I mean, if you want to tack an extra week on, make it on May 6th, and that'd be.
If we tack an extra week on, it actually buys time for people who are interested to get petitions signed, right?
From the task force.
Yes.
Yes. So if we made it May 6th, that's, what day of the week is that?
Tuesday.
That's a Tuesday. So what we would be doing today is saying that we intend to hold a special election on Tuesday, the 6th of May. And then you would do the math on the deadline for when people have to turn in their
I think
petitions.
the petitions would do then in that case would be April 1st or March 31st or something like that.
March 31st is Monday.
Okay, March 31st.
Okay. If it's the problem is, I hear the comment from the community, it's not much time, and the answer is, that part really is bound by statute. We don't have any choice.
Yeah, it's got to be called within 60 days.
That's right. So I would entertain a motion in that case that we call for a special election to fill the vacant, to fill what is currently the vacant council seat on the 6th of May, Tuesday the 6th of May, with the understanding that petitions must be turned in
By
by
the 31st of March.
March 31st. Do I have a motion?
I'll make that motion.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any conversation from the community that you would like to throw in? Try and do it without dropping the mic.
So just looking at the calendar, that means a person is elected on the 6th, and then the first council meeting that they would be a part of would be the 19th. They would miss the first Monday night in May.
Unless there's a special council meeting held in the interim.
That's correct.
That's
So
correct.
I just want to put that out there.
Yep, that's correct. Any other comments or questions from the audience, from the community? Hearing none, are there any comments or questions from the council?
No, I think that maximizes the timeline to allow people to actually talk with community members but
Okay.
follow statute, so. Yeah.
Great. So I have a motion, I think we've stated it clearly for the clerk. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. Thank you very much. And thank you, Joseph, for catching me up on that one. The next one is just a point of information that I just wanted to make to the council, which is I would ask that council members let me know as early in the week as possible if you have items, or as early in the process as possible, if you have items that you would like to see included on an upcoming agenda. And I would ask that those items, if at all possible, be turned in no later than the Thursday preceding, assuming it's a Monday meeting, that meeting, so that at the moment, Chris and I can work to make sure that we get the meeting warned appropriately, the agenda's created, and we have any supporting material that we need. So it's just point of courtesy. I'm looking forward to the council members bringing items forward that you would like to see on the agenda. Any comments or questions that you all have? Okay. Let's see, what's this one? Oh, yes. So the next one is a little tricky. This is item 14, agreement to hold a special council meeting on March 31st, 2025. Cancel the regular meeting scheduled for April 7th, 2025, with the possibility that we may choose to hold a special meeting on April 14th if needed. This change is requested in order to accommodate my travel schedule. So what's going on here is that I will do my level best not to schedule times away on first Mondays of the month. And the reason that matters is because we are actually required by charter to hold a council meeting on the first Mondays of the month. The problem is that I have a commitment that I made months ago to attend the meeting of the Main Street America Conference in Philadelphia that first week in April. And I can't be two places at once. And I would prefer not to try and manage a council meeting, given all that's before us, by Zoom. So I've gone over this language with the attorney to make sure that we're doing it appropriately and not running afoul of the charter. So I'll just say to the community, I'm aware of the requirement and doing my best to try and comply with it with appropriate language. And I'd ask everyone to just recognize that the intent is to make sure that we still have plenty of time to do our work and allow me to attend that meeting. So I would entertain a motion. I think what we really need is just that motion for a special council meeting on March 31st. We'll do that motion first.
I make that motion.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second. Any further comment? Any comment from the community? I hear no community comment. I hear no further comment from the council. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that motion passes. Then let's do the second one here, which would be to cancel the regularly scheduled meeting for April 7th, 2025, with the possibility that we may choose to hold a special meeting on April 14th if necessary. Do I have a motion?
I make that motion.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any concern or question from the community? Hearing none. Any further comment from the council?
This works actually well for me because I have a previous commitment on the
There we
7th,
go. You
so-
lucked out this time.
But
No
I know-
more Mondays, especially
I know,
first
going
ones.
forward, I will.
Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes. I appreciate your consideration. Okay. Do we have anybody who's signed up for public comment tonight? Can you grab the
Yes.
clipboard there?
Yes.
Go ahead, Andy, just keep it. Who's up first?
Ann.
And so let me just say as we begin, please continue as we have done, as has been our habit, to direct your comments to me and through me as mayor. And does somebody have a timer who can keep track? We'll offer 2 minutes apiece. We'll be a little bit lenient if you're still running over and you want to finish a sentence or two, but please try and keep your comments brief. Ann?
Yeah, I put inclusion as my subject matter here, and I've really said most of what I wanted to say a little while ago during the setup of the committees. But I'd ask you just generally to try to include us. We're not stupid. Some of us are well educated, some of us are just well skilled, and we have information to offer to you. I guess we get frustrated when we think you don't want to hear us, so thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Who's next, Andrew?
I'm gonna pass, thank you.
And then Jen.
Jennifer?
I just wanted to thank you guys. I wanted to thank you all for stepping up to the plate and running and being willing to serve. And as I look at this council, I am feeling like I can take a sigh of relief. I see a level of integrity. I see a level of truthfulness. I see a level of honesty. And that makes me a very happy camper and resident.
Thank you very much for your comment. Anybody else?
No.
And I don't see any comments that were registered from online. So moving on to item 16, it's our habit to ask if there's any old business that a council member would like to revisit. So I'll just go by alphabetical order. Councilmember Charbonneau?
No, thank you.
Okay. Councilmember Finnegan?
Not applicable, probably.
Okay. All right. Councilmember Touchette?
No, thank you.
Okay. Clerk Treasurer, anything from you?
No.
Okay. No old business. Moving on to new business. Are there any, is there any new business, beginning with Councilmember Charbonneau?
No, thank you.
Okay. Councilmember Finnegan?
No, thank you.
Councilmember Touchette?
No, thank you.
Okay. And Jim from the city clerk?
No, nothing.
Okay. I would like to make a statement as a part of new business. I have copies of this if anybody would like them. I am thrilled and excited to be taking on the role of mayor at this moment in Newport's history. There's much to build on, and there are so many possibilities if we choose to work together as a community. One of the things I appreciated about Mayor Sullivan's tenure was her commitment to hearing from and communicating with the public. So I want to talk a little bit about what it is that I intend to do to at least start as mayor. First, I intend to continue the tradition of drop-in hours to speak with the mayor, though I will move them to Mondays from 4 to 5:30 in the afternoon so that folks who have a full workday might still be able to drop by and have a conversation if they'd like. I'll try and hold those weekly, so even on weeks that we're not meeting as a council, you can still find me here from 4 to 5:30 unless I've posted somewhere that I haven't yet figured out that I'll be canceling, which might happen in the case of a holiday. It will happen in the case of a holiday. It might happen in the case of my travel or something like that. Second, I intend to continue the weekly column called From the Desk of the Mayor that the Daily Express has graciously offered to the person in this position. But I want to say to the council members and to the department heads that I will invite them to share that responsibility with me on a regular basis. I don't intend to write that column myself every week, but I will probably write it twice a month and ask for others to fill in between and share your own concerns and questions. Third, I will continue the habit that Mayor Sullivan created for regular updates through the From the Desk of the Mayor program produced by NEK-TV. Again, graciously produced by NEK-TV. I am so grateful for the remarkable work that that organization does for this community and for this mayor and council. I will likely drop that back to twice a month, at least initially, probably generally following council meetings. And there will probably not be one, at least in the next day or two, because I haven't yet had that conversation, other than to hear from Todd Pronto that he's more than happy to continue if we'd like to do so. And then finally, I'm available for longer conversations one-on-one. Anyone is welcome to reach out to me by email. My email is currently on the city website, and it will continue to be the same, rick.uffordchase@newportvermont.org. If I don't respond quickly enough or I miss it, which is possible because the volume of emails has already gone up tremendously, and I'm going to be doing my best. So if you feel like I'm not responding quickly enough, feel free to pick up the phone and call me. My number will be printed on the, published on the website as well. I think it's actually already there. So you can text me or call me to get my attention, and we'll set a time to meet. I'm always happy to have a cup of coffee with someone. I may not offer to buy every time. Third, this is a new item beyond this question about how we'll communicate. Respect and civility will go a long way in my tenure as mayor. Almost every problem, in my experience, can be solved if we commit to work together with one another in good spirit. I suspect I can speak for our council and our city staff when I say that if you approach us with a positive attitude, it will be far easier for us to work with you to solve your problems or respond to your concerns. Approaching us with condescension or sarcasm or intimidation, which I confess, I admit to you, is prevalent in our current discourse politically across the country, is not helpful, and it makes it harder, not easier, for us to do our jobs. Having said that, regardless of how you approach us, we understand our role as public servants is to be as responsive as possible to the needs of our constituents. And as public servants, we have a responsibility to model that respectful spirit for others. Along the same lines, I want the community to know that my leadership style is primarily built around listening carefully to others, trying to find consensus, and then taking action to realize our shared vision. I make mistakes like everybody does. When I make them, I guarantee no one is harder on me than me. You will find it far easier to help me see the error of my ways when you approach me with the notion not only that I might be wrong, but also that you might be. My favorite bumper sticker, and one that is going back on my car and my pickup truck as soon as mud season is over, is "Don't believe everything you think." I believe that kind of humility is important for me personally, and I often find that inaccurate assumptions others make about me or about one another are not useful. So it's helpful advice for others as well. Fourth, I believe that Mayor Sullivan brought some much needed order to our council meetings, and I will strive to maintain that order. Remember always that these are council meetings to which the public is invited to attend and participate, not public meetings to which the council is invited. I will do my best to make sure that residents and stakeholders in Newport are heard in our deliberations as a council and during our council meetings. But at the end of the day, the conversation will return to the council, and together, mayor and council will make the best decision we can for the good of the whole community. As Mayor Sullivan did, I will continue to insist that residents address their comments to and through me as mayor. Personal attacks against other members of the community or against individual council members or city staff are not appropriate. I also want to offer a few words about conflict, which is a natural part of any community effort. When we disagree with one another, our tendency is to assume some kind of evil motive on the part of the person with whom we disagree. I have found it helpful throughout my career, and this is widely accepted practice in conflict mediation, to ask one another in those moments of disagreement about the experiences that have led us to the position we hold. When we talk about our experiences, we often can find common ground or empathy or at least greater understanding, which can lead us to find an acceptable path forward together. And finally, My reflection as I begin my term of mayor, my final reflection, is based on my experience of watching my daughter and my son-in-law parent my 18-month-old granddaughter. When she becomes really frustrated and throws a tantrum or begins to melt down, they often remind her in a calming voice, "You can do hard things." And then they help her to do the things she's struggling to accomplish. I wish I'd have thought about that when I was parenting my kids at that age. We can do hard things. I believe in the people of Newport, and I believe in this council, and I believe in our city staff. Working together, we're going to accomplish hard things. I'm grateful to be the mayor of Newport in this moment when taking on those hard things has the potential to transform our community. Thank you very much. So, last two quick items of business. Do I have a motion to set our next regular council meeting for March 17th at 6 p.m.?
So moved.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Do I have a motion to adjourn our meeting at 7:20 p.m.?
No.
Oh! No wonder I thought I was doing so well. Do I have a motion to adjourn our meeting at 8:20 p.m.? And thank you very much for the help.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, Kevin has made the motion. Do I have a second? Second. Andy has seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much.